Hey, thanks for checking out the show. And if you like it, tell a friend. And if you want to support the show, you can by 1, subscribing and liking our YouTube channel at the DMW Podcast. 2, you can go to our website and sign up to our mailing list at the DMWpodcast.com. And 3, you can follow us on Instagram at the DMW Podcast. Thanks again for all of your support. My name is Stef, and this is the Dead Man Walking Podcast.
Stef Oots.
How you doing, man?
Very good, my friend. Very good.
Look, I know it's a pain to come all the way to Plateau.
Not at all,
Was
man.
was the parking bad?
You know what? I think I parked in livraison only section, so hopefully we have no ticket when we get back.
Getting a ticket.
But it's right in front, so I mean, save the walk.
Awesome, man. Dude, I just wanted to say again, thanks for coming by.
My man.
We've known each other for a while now.
Yeah.
And one of the first people, you were in the top like 10 people that I was thinking of.
Really?
Yeah. And
Sick.
I was just thinking about it because the reason for this show is really just to talk about people and all the shit that they've gone through
Right.
to get to where they are today.
Yeah.
And then also where they're fucking going, right? So the one person that I thought about was you because I remember
My man.
from when you started with Bossa, or Bossa. I want to say Bossa, but is it
I
Bossa?
say Bossa.
Okay.
Everyone says it different though, you know?
Hey, man, as long as they
There's
come
no
with the
clear cut way, bro. As long as you enjoy the sandwich, it's all that matters, right?
Exactly. So I remember there being all kinds of shit that came your way.
No, for sure.
So for me, it's like, what a sick story of everything
Yeah.
that happened with this place from the day it started. And even the idea of how it came to be
Yeah.
when your dad told me about it is just something that I felt that whoever is watching, whoever is listening needs to know because the sandwiches are fucking great.
My man.
The place is great. But I think if they know a little more of the story behind the place, they'll love it even more.
Of course.
So for me, I'm just happy you're here, man.
Yeah.
And I just want to have a conversation. It's been a while since we
I
sat
know,
down and
man.
actually talked. I
Well,
think the last time was what? Kanye West.
The last show.
We hung out.
The last show, I think, it was Kanye West. I was honestly, I don't remember every show that I've ever gone to, man. That's the one thing I don't remember. I have very little recollection of any show because your number one rule was you could never see me without a drink. That was the thing.
That was the rule. Like
Yeah.
I remember when I had that box, it was like you
Yeah,
walked in. If I saw you without a drink,
It's done.
it was
It's over, bro.
mandatory. You needed
It's
a
over.
drink.
And every time I would leave, I'm walking out of 40 chink, bro, trying to hold the railings on my way out.
Yeah, man.
What a time, though, man. It was cool. Thank you for that, by the way. That was sick, man. Me and my friends, we still talk about it today. It was a hell of a time.
I remember that was. I think that was the first night officially. Did we meet on the Kanye concert?
No. We went to, I have videos on my phone, man. We went to all kinds of concerts together. We went to hockey games too, man.
True.
Yeah.
Shit, yeah.
I would say like probably for like a 2 or 3 year period, at least a couple of years, we would, if there was a crazy show that I was going to go watch, Dad, call Stef, bro, see if he could hook it up, me and my friends, please.
Oh, man,
Hey, yeah, for sure. Come.
And your dad
Sick.
is awesome.
My dad's awesome, man.
Yeah.
He's super cool.
Yeah, and actually, your dad is the one that told me about a story of you guys driving back from Philly.
Mhm.
And I think that was one of the fucking coolest stories about how you thought of the place, or just I think maybe even the idea
Possibly.
of what you wanted to do. So I don't know if maybe you want to jump into that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we used to go to Philly almost every year, man, because pretty much his entire family lives in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So at least once or twice a year growing up, we would always go to Philly. And I would say the story begins definitely before that, when I first started cooking in the industry. But in regards to that story with my dad, Philadelphia is known for their sandwiches, you know? And over here in Montreal, we have a couple of sandwich places, a lot of them which I personally love, but they're very different from the Italian American style sandwich where it's packed with, mayo, vinaigrettes, different kinds of cold cuts, cheeses, pickled vegetables, all that stuff. And I just found that there was really nothing over here that was like that. So it was always a vision in the back of my head that that's what I eventually wanted to do. Took a lot of different directions to eventually get there. Long story to get there, absolutely. But I mean, driving back with my dad, man, you're in the car with this guy for 8 hours. So we're just kind of bouncing ideas back and forth. And I'll be honest with you, I don't remember the specifics, but it was definitely one of many conversations that we had that definitely spark an idea or a vision, you know?
It's funny because I remember when I had the conversation with him, because I hadn't spoken to your dad in a while. And we just randomly, I was thinking about him and he calls me. I'm coming back from up north, and I'm driving.
You know what's funny? He says the same thing about you all the time.
Yeah,
bro.
dude,
It's crazy.
he sends out a phone call, and I'm like, he gives me a ring. I answer the phone. I'm like, holy shit, T, I haven't heard from you in so long. How's it going? Talking. Congratulate. I'm like, yo, tell Dan, congrats on the new place on Masson.
Yeah.
I had heard also. I think at that time I don't remember if you had told me about downtown and time out at that point, but I remember there was like kind of like that whole conversation. But then he was telling me about the story of just you guys driving back an 8-hour drive, and that you were looking to try to create that vibe of that Philly vibe.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, that's what it was for sure.
And it was definitely, that's the vibe I get when I walk inside your places.
Yeah.
Is I feel like I just kind of travel into a U.S., Italian American, Montreal feel too, but with this like Italy feel at the same time. Like you're really capturing a lot of that Italian essence from North America, but to the, kind of the roots at the same time. So what kind of started that idea where you said, I want to make this the vibe in here?
Well, a big part of it is like actually just going to Philly often and going to these delis that are like in the neighborhood, South Philly and all that stuff. Kind of a funnier little part of it though is I'm a huge Sopranos fan. Okay. And there's that iconic picture of like Paulie Walnuts and he's sunbathing, at Satriali's. I have that somewhere in one of the stores. It's on my phone. I post it every now and then. But he's sitting at the table, the iconic table, the red checker tablecloth, with the foldable chairs. And that stupid little table is like such a big inspiration to me and like how I want the branding of my store and my business to be, because that to me is like the quintessential like Italian American deli. You know what I mean?
Well, you give that vibe like big time.
Yeah, and that's exactly it.
But even the staff too, like everyone.
The staff is awesome, man.
The staff is
I have a great team. I gotta
Everybody,
say.
when you walk in, especially the one in Verdun, like the one in Verdun is the original place. But there was a shit show that happened. I remember when you first opened.
It was tough, man. It was tough. I was, we could get into it if you want, man. But I was super young. I was 23 years old, working in the industry under.
You've been catering. You've been doing a bunch of stuff.
Well, dude, I used to be like John Molson, Concordia, finance. Like I want to do marketing. I want to do this. Yeah, big time, heavy. I was working
at.
Talk
about how that switch happened.
The switch is it's all weirdly enough like a part of like what made me who I am today, and like plays a big role into the restaurants that we have now. But where was I going with this? Yeah, at the beginning, man, it was just young. I opened it with my mom, obviously, and my uncle was also a partner back in the day. That was like a whole fiasco. And it always gets a bit tricky when you're mixing in family like that into business. And we had a little ordeal, so something ended up happening along those lines, and then we had a fire like 2 months into opening.
Did that kind of like,
it was,
when you have something like a fire?
Yeah, man.
What was the morale at that point?
Dude, it was sad at the beginning. So what happened on that day? We had just opened like 2 months ago, and it's weird.
It was like you had just opened.
Dude,
I remember.
It's weird because now, man, 2 months flies like that.
Yeah.
But back then, 2 months to me, it felt like we were open for a year, right? Like every day was long, and like you're killing yourself and you're doing this. So after 2 months, one night I left the store, locked the door. I drove home. I was living at my parents' house at the time. Went in the basement, rolled myself a joint. I don't know if I could do that over here.
Do whatever you want here.
Okay, we're good. So I had the joint in my mouth like this. I had the lighter over here, and my phone starts ringing. It's probably like 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night.
What a killer, bud.
It's the alarm.
No.
Yeah, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? I put the joint down, answer the phone. They're like, yeah, there's a fire alarm going off at the store. This and that. We're sending firemen. I'm like, okay. I didn't think anything of it. I thought, whatever, man. Maybe it was a false alarm or
somebody tried to break a window.
Someone else in the building, this and that. As soon as I turned onto Wellington, which is where the Verdun store is, just fire trucks everywhere, cops, ambulances, like the whole street shut down. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, this is real. This is crazy. I call my mom, I call my uncle, and we're all just standing in front of the restaurant, like watching the firemen do their thing. They're like breaking the windows, tearing down the walls, like basically everything that we had spent the past like 6 months of our lives building, just getting destroyed. So that night was pretty deep. But I mean, after that, I kind of looked at it as a blessing in disguise. It gave us an opportunity to like pivot and see what we liked doing during those 2 months, what we didn't like doing. And we made adjustments to the business model right then and there. And that's when we really started kind of focusing on the sandwiches more.
Yeah.
Because before it was more grocery oriented and prêt à manger and all the ready-made meals and all that stuff, which was not that exciting to me. I was 23 years old. I wanted like a little bit more excitement in my life, right? I wanted to be, I wanted to have something.
It was part of the vision, but it wasn't the vision you fully had yet. You kind of knew that already?
It wasn't the vision that I wanted at all, man. It wasn't. No. Because tying back into like the previous, before doing Bossa, I was working for a great friend of mine, almost family, and like an excellent chef, Joey DeLeva. And I was like kind of relatively new in the industry, seeing like all these people like, you know, Danny Smiles and Chuck Hughes and like all this cool stuff that they're doing. And I wanted to do that myself. And then we opened Bossa and it was like, okay, like, you know, frying cutlets and
it didn't have
and making like farfalle pesto. It's like, it's pretty, you know, it gets kind of mundane and kind of boring after a while. So it was never at the beginning truly like what I was passionate about. And wasn't a place that I wanted necessarily to have like all my boys over and have a couple coffees and a couple of beers and chill. It wasn't that place necessarily at that point. But we got there eventually. That's what's important, right?
But it's crazy because the fire in one way or another maybe kind of completely stopped the course of something that you didn't even have that passion for.
Exactly.
And then it was like a blessing, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah,
but I mean, in that moment, it must have been
it was deep.
A punch to the gut, man.
Yeah.
Like how was the morale at that point?
It was
like just restarting again from scratch. Because that to me is always, I find, the hardest thing. It's like if we have to talk South Philly, like you're talking like, let's say Rocky style, you're completely knocked down.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like the force to get back up, the strength to kind of put that together. What was kind of the thing that drove you to say, we got to change, not only get back, but we got to change this the other direction?
So a big part of the conversation at that stage was like, do we want to keep doing this?
Yeah.
Right? This could kind of be like an opportunity to get out.
Yeah.
And like not entirely lose our shirts. And again, I was with my mom and my uncle at the time, and I didn't want to do it if we were going to be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
That was like
that was kind of you putting your
my decision was like, you know what, guys, like they were also iffy. They had their own reasons of being iffy as well. Right. For me, it was more of, look, I don't want to restart this whole process and go through this, you know, construction is not fun, man. It's not fun.
I went through it,
especially restaurants and all that stuff, man. It's not fun. So did I really want to go through this whole process again? And aside from that, like miss out on other opportunities. Like I said, I was working with Joey at the time. Even during the fire, I went back to work with him while they were doing the construction. But did I want to like give up those opportunities to do something that I wasn't fully passionate about or something that I wasn't 100% in?
Yeah.
And the answer was no. I didn't want to do that. So I wanted to kind of focus more on the sandwiches. I convinced them to shift the business model that way also.
Was that hard? Was that hard for them to kind of look at the place in
a different
way?
The generational gap between us, it was
obvious in that moment? Or
it was definitely obvious, man. It's harder for, like, now it's me and my mom, and like we're super cool. We work very, very well together. You know, my mom's awesome. But we've also been doing this for 5 years now, right? Yeah. At the beginning of the business, it's like, oh, no one's really sure, right? You could believe in me as much as you want, but I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, right?
I was about to say that. I think that's the key. Yeah. I'm noticing from everybody I've ever spoken to, and I've worked with a lot of businesses, you know, in the past, whatever, all that stuff. And usually it's at the beginning, you don't know what you're doing, but you got to keep going. Man. And you're going to keep fixing shit. All the mistakes you made.
You got to pivot.
You got to pivot.
Yeah,
you know, you got to pivot constantly and just be able to adapt.
Yeah.
And especially in moments, those are like real big moments.
Of course.
It puts you in a spot to make a decision right now. Mm-hmm. And you can't, and which is kind of good at times because it doesn't make you lag. It doesn't take 2 years to pivot. It's like, it tells you right fucking now, am I moving or am I not?
So that's a big thing that I know, because I noticed a lot of stuff back then working with my uncle and my mom about how like crazy different the generations are. And that exactly what you just said was one of the biggest things that I noticed was like being able to adapt, and just making decisions and going with it and not looking back and just being like, hey, we're doing this now and like, let's move forward. And when you're a small business, a small restaurant, it's super, super easy to do that, right?
Yeah.
Now that we've gotten a little bit bigger, I'm starting to notice that like, man, it's not easy to do this stuff. If I want to implement the change now. Like I have to do this, and that first, and I have to tell person A, B, C, and D, and then they have to delegate it to all these other people. So it's nice when you're a little bit smaller, you're able to do those changes really quick. And that getting back to the first point was, that's what was like the most challenging, was just to kind of convince them that like we all don't know what's happening here, but like I feel like my idea is gonna work.
Yeah.
So let's try and do it. Everyone got on board eventually. It wasn't the easiest thing, but
usually when change
it's
happens,
do or die at that point, right?
And change forces friction. Someone told me that once. It
Yeah,
automatically creates friction. The moment you change something, someone is either going to push back or want to push forward.
Yeah.
But no matter what it is, it's going to create some sort of friction, some dissonance between people also. And I think what's important is that, no matter what, if you have a vision, what I'm seeing more and more is when someone has a vision, it's kind of, you have to hold true to that vision too.
Yeah.
And you knew kind of in your mind that, based on that conversations or maybe those thoughts you had of just this vision of what the store should be like, or what the restaurant should be like.
Yeah, and the vibe too. Like just the overall vibe is important, man.
I find for me a vibe in a restaurant
It's the most important.
is the most important.
Yeah.
The food is it has to be good, don't be wrong. But if you have great food with a shit vibe,
It doesn't matter, man.
no one wants to eat there.
For sure. I actually had to at the other store today. I had to change the password on the iPod because the cashiers in the front kept putting on like Pitbull and I swear like all these '90s musics. And every time I walk in, I'm like, guys, stop playing this, please. But they kept playing it, so it's like it's crucial, man. The vibe is important for sure.
And so now with the Wellington store, that was doing well.
Yeah.
And then you decided to open on Meso.
Some things happened that made it possible for me to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, one major thing was bringing on my partner Fabio.
Okay.
He's incredible chef. So he started working with us through the pandemic, just kind of helping out, giving us a hand, coming in, messing around. He's like a hilarious guy. You'd love him, actually. He's Fabio Sperduti. He worked for Antonio Park for a long time, worked at like all these crazy restaurants. So he joined the team kind of as like he was working at the golf course at the time. It was winter. So he was off of work, came just to give us a hand, and we ended up just clicking like that, man. So he joined the team and worked with us for a while, and then we started to really kind of gain some like actual traction, and it's weird at that phase because you're like you don't know if you're just like a trend, right? And it's like okay, it's hard, man. You don't know how to distinguish it at that point, man. It's like, oh my god, this is crazy. There's a lineup over here. So all kinds of people, like you're kind of stressed too. You're like, do I have enough food? Like, what do I need to do to be able to do this? The whole time I'm still working, like I'm still making sandwiches, right? So I'm working like 18 hours a day, and I'm trying to like manage, not the entire business, but definitely like the future of the business and like the marketing of it and the direction exactly. So you don't know at that stage if it's like, man, is this just like a because these trends, they come and go all the time, right?
At one point it was taco heaven, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then donuts, and then this, and it's always like an evolving thing, right? So,
so what do you think is making you kind of go against the trend? Because I have my ideas and my thoughts about it.
Okay.
But I mean, on your side, it seems natural what you're doing, and I think that's why it's not maybe falling in the trend. It's like you're not pretending to be anybody else but Dan. Like when I see you today versus who you were 5 years ago, you've grown, but the guy behind the
same old dude,
same
man.
guy. You know what I mean? Like we'll still smoke a joint, or we'll still hang out, and we'll still like party, but the same way you're fucking working your ass off and building kind of this not empire, I would say, but I mean, you're building something here that is growing
like
at a level.
I'd like to think it's like a cool brand, you know,
it's
something
a cool
chill.
brand. And I think that's what's making it cool is that you're kind of really bringing yourself out in the brand itself. And I see it even now with the switch in social media, just a little more character to it. You know what I mean? On the Bossa site and even all the kind of the features that you're getting also.
Yeah.
How does it feel now that people are asking you?
It's
what's like,
bro, it's crazy, dude. I don't even know, man.
Yeah, like what's the vibe now? Like people are calling you and say, I wanna talk to you. I wanna hear this story like myself or whatever. But more importantly, like magazines, I want to take pictures of you cooking and doing all this stuff. And
that's cool, man. I mean, look, I was never someone that liked attention that much or sought it out or ever wanted to, do this kind of stuff. But it's what I like the most about it is like the people you meet along the way, and like doing fun stuff like this, man. And like filming videos of cooking. It's just, it's mindset, I guess, just like completely did a 360, and it's like it's fun doing this stuff now. It's it feels very like we were talking about your daughter before. Like it feels unrealistic sometimes. It doesn't feel real, you know.
Yeah.
But it's fun, man. I like it.
And how is that kind of like now having the restaurant? Is it, you know, I always thought of if I ever owned the restaurant, I have my you know, my view of how I would do it. Everyone has their own view.
Of course.
Everybody always wanted to own a restaurant
sure.
at one point in their life. If you went out at night and you like to party, at one point you either wanted to own a restaurant
You contemplated
or you wanted to
it
own a bar.
for sure, guaranteed.
So one or the other. And you know, the idea I think everyone has is that restaurant business is it's exciting. It's exciting. There's hard work.
Oh fuck yeah!
But I was going to say, on your side, at one point were you just kind of saying, "Fuck this, man.
No.
I'm done."
No,
because I've heard a lot of people, you know, like now that they're like, "Thank God I didn't stop." But you know, at one point they were like, "I'm fucking done. I the 18 hours. I'm getting tired of this shit. You know, I don't know if it's going anywhere at the restaurant." Did you have any like at one point?
There was one moment after. Like me and my mom eventually ended up taking over the business before like we really got busy. And I would say like a month or two after we had taken it over, we started to kind of get busy. And I was like one of the only cooks, you know, I maybe had a dishwasher with me and a prep cook. So I was making sandwiches all day from the moment I got in to the moment I left, 7 days a week, you know, for almost 2 months, 3 months at that point. Not really taking a break before that either, like just straight working for 2 years, right? And I was just getting tired, man. I was getting frustrated. Try to sneak out, smoke a cigarette, take a puff or two, and then get called back in because I have to go. You know, there's customers in the store. So you definitely start to lose your patience. But it was never really a moment where I'm like, fuck this, like I want out. It was more of a moment. And my dad was there too. I actually snapped at my dad that night because he was there. He was trying to give me a hand. He could be a bit hard-headed sometimes. So he wasn't listening to me. I think he was pissed at me because I didn't say please, some shit.
It's always some
so I
stupid
snapped, bro, and I'm like, yo, get the fuck out, go home. Like, I'll talk to you when I get home. And he left, and he was fucking super pissed at me. And that was, I think, like the breaking point. And then I sat myself down that night, and I'm like, yo, I need help here. I need people. I got to like make it a priority to start hiring people.
How hard was it for you to admit that you needed help?
Wasn't hard at all, man. I knew I needed help, dude. It was just a question of finding time to do it, man. That's what the hardest part was, because I would get home from a full day, tired, exhausted, like burnt. All I wanted to do was like disassociate from work a bit, smoke a joint, chill with my friends maybe for an hour, watch TV, pass out, and I know tomorrow I'm doing it all again. So it was really just kind of like mustering up that last bit of energy to like, okay, now I'm going to go on Indeed and I'm going to post applications. I'm going to try looking for people.
It's funny you say that, because a lot of times what I've heard from a lot of people when they're running the show, the biggest thing that they have a hard time with is delegating, right? And kind of letting go of it, because it's hard to see someone else do it. Not because they don't think they could do it, but that it's tough to kind of let go of that control over the situation, because you know that if I'm taking care of it, it's going to go well. So now that you went from the one store to the three,
I agree.
You had to learn a shitload about delegating.
Dude, that definitely plays a factor. To speak on the previous point, I was never closed off to that. I had you know, those random conversations that you have with like your friend's dad in life, you know,
The life
just a random, you know, on the balcony, waiting for your friend to get ready, just having a random conversation. And he's actually a friend of my father's too. This guy, Sergio, he told me once, like many, many years ago, he's like, yo, he's like, you and your friends, you should all do something together. He's like, there's power in numbers. That's what he told me. And ever since he said that, that just like kind of tattooed itself onto my brain and made me realize that like if you're going to do something alone, it'll take you 10 times as long as it would if you were to do it with like a group of guys or a group of people to try to accomplish the same goal. So that having that mindset, it was like, hey, like I need to build a crazy team.
Yeah.
Like that's priority number one, is like getting like good guys, good employees, training them properly, like making sure that they want to be here and they're not just here for a paycheck, you know?
Yeah.
Having like loyalty within your staff is very important.
Well, that's one thing I see a lot, though, like just on the posts and everything, and even the crew. When I walk inside the restaurant,
for sure,
it doesn't feel like it's a bunch of employees. It feels like
but I don't treat them like employees either, man. I treat them, especially my kitchen guys, man. Like I've had guys that are with me for like 3 or 4 years, and they're, man, like we've gone on to become like super good friends.
Yeah, you could see it.
You know,
you walk in the place, and that's what I'm saying is you feel like you're part of this, the vibe. You know what I mean? The vibe is a vibe of, you know what it reminds me of? It's funny when I think about it now. It was when I was a kid. This chair keeps on dropping. When I was a kid, we used to have everybody over. We used to do like the sauce.
Yeah, for sure.
The meat and do all that shit, right? So I remember I'd be a kid and it was like child labor cutting tomatoes and all that shit. And everyone is doing that stuff and everyone would be having a drink and they're laughing and they're prepping this food. And it was this like vibe going on of just nothing else in the world mattered.
That's it, bro.
It was August. It was tomato season. My garage smelled like a fucking farm.
Yeah.
And we would all just be in there. My grandfather would be, doing, hey, I had this like homemade machine making for a sauce.
Torque. We're trying to walk it around for sure.
He attached this piece of wood.
Yeah.
It's all handmade. I'm like, holy shit, right?
Yeah.
And so we're doing all this stuff. And the vibe in the garage was this vibe of a family just making food together.
Yep.
And that's the vibe I feel every time I walk into the place. Like every time I walk, especially when we're done, because that's the one I've
for
most
sure.
of the time. It definitely has that vibe, and it feels like what you're saying. Like it's not like you're talking bullshit. That I could tell you, I feel that the moment I walk in.
That's what's important. That's what made me fall in love with this industry in the first place. Was exactly what you just said, right? Going from working at the bank when I was, I don't know, maybe 18, 17 years old. You're young at that point.
About the bank. There's two people that I've had on this show.
Really?
That worked at a bank, and after that, they were like,
Dude, you know what, man? I loved it when I was there. When I left, though, I went right into cooking. And I was like, I can't believe I ever did that shit. Like, I hated the fact that I was in Concordia and John Molson and that I didn't go to like cooking school as soon as I finished high school. I was like, fuck, I wasted like.
I'd love to jump into that after.
Let's go.
Just to try, okay, so
yeah, for sure.
Your original plan was what before cooking?
Like the cookie cutter, average typical person of my age right now. Finish high school, go to college, go to university after. John Molson, like prestigious, get a job in like finance or marketing.
But why? Why was that kind of? I don't
know, dude. What? All my friends, I think, did that. All my friends do that. So it was kind of just like, maybe competing with them in like a weird way, or just kind of like trying to remain friends with them by like taking this outlet and being like, okay, this is. And honestly, I always thought of myself as a creative dude.
Yeah.
I always kind of wanted to do if I ever had to do anything in like that respects, it would probably be marketing because I could at least be creative. But that's what it was, man. That's what I wanted to do at that age,
It's funny you say that because at one point too, I remember when I was a kid, my brother's an accountant, the other one became an engineer, and it was kind of like, oh, you should be a lawyer.
Yeah.
It's kind of this idea you should be a lawyer.
The trifecta.
And at one point I was like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, like maybe 15 or 14, yeah, maybe this lawyer thing is not a bad idea. But I was playing guitar at the time, and I just didn't understand the idea of it. And then every time there was kind of like this gut feeling that something was off. I was like, I understand why I could be a lawyer.
Yeah,
I understand all about that. I just don't want to fucking be one, though.
I agree.
I can't understand. It was like this internal gut feeling. And then when I decided to go down music, and then funny enough, it didn't work out, but I ended up going into marketing. It's funny you said marketing because that was the only outlet that I felt like,
of course,
I could do something.
We could express ourselves.
I could still be creative.
Yeah.
And then how to incorporate it in business or whatever. But it's funny, like it's such a weird feeling when you just know it, but you can't explain it when you're younger. And I don't know if that's how you felt. Like you were at John Molson, right?
I was at John Molson, man, but I didn't belong there. Like I'm not by any means good in school, I kind of like schemed my way through school, which is very important in business. I actually have a funny story for you regarding that. Let's fast forward a little bit to the last John Molson class that I took. I paid someone to do my final exam, which it was COVID during the pandemic. I was still in school. I was running this business up until like a year or two ago. So I paid a buddy of mine to do this. Actually, not even a buddy of mine. That was another time. This time, but that's what I did, right? So I paid someone to do this take-home final for me, submitted it, and then I got caught for plagiarism. So I had, and I didn't give a shit at that point, man. I had my business going. I'm like, man, the only reason why I'm really doing this is I had like 2 or 3 classes left to get my diploma. So I'm like, fuck it, let me just finish it. But then I got caught for plagiarism, and I had a meeting with the dean to discuss like what we were gonna do. Whole time I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'll meet with this guy. Like I'm gonna look at him as a man too, not like a student begging for his place, right?
Please,
so
God, give me a place.
Bro, we have this Zoom meeting. I log on. He's like, hi. He's like, super nice guy, super respectful. He's like, yeah, so we heard you got caught for plagiarism, this, and that. And I'm like, he's like, you want to explain yourself? I'm like, look, sir. I'm like, with all due respect, I'm like, I own a business. I operate a business. In business, what you learn is that if you don't have the bandwidth to do something or the time to do something, you hire someone and delegate it. trying to apply that to the exam, which is true, bro. That's the reality of it. When you're in business, you hire employees.
What
and
was his response?
He didn't know what to say, man. No one ever, I think, told him that in his life or anything near. And he's like, yeah. He's like, pause for a couple of seconds. He's like, I understand.
He just puts you on a blank screen.
Bro, he was tripping for a second. And he's like, but according to the student handbook, you're not allowed to do this and that. He's like, you have to fail the class. I'm like, no problem. And that's it. We ended it. But it was just, at that moment, I realized what school had taught me. It wasn't anything educational. It was more just how to grind and like how to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And how to use, I don't want to say use people, but like use resources to attain a goal. It's probably not ethical in regards to education in school. I'm not proud of what I did. But in life, like I said, if you don't have the bandwidth or the time or the skill set to do something, what do? You outsource, right?
Yeah. Well, it's, I always found that school and real life are always two different worlds, right?
Of course,
I remember, I'll never forget, I was in this marketing class and I went back to it at night after I'd been working at CTV for years, right? So I had done campaigns and done all this real shit for real.
Okay.
And then we get back to this class and they talk to us and they're like, okay, what would be the campaign that you would do? Your budget's $1 million and all this stuff.
And you've already done it.
So I start prepping the stuff and then I said, I remember everything was fine. Like I did the campaigns, I put, the different campaigns from digital to traditional, whatever. I did the mix, the marketing mix, all that stuff. But then I told the teacher, remember I said, I think you guys are forgetting a real big part of the whole process here is who the fuck has the $1 million to give you just like that and to spend it. I'm like, the hardest part is getting the $1 million.
Finding the money,
budget.
Man.
If you don't get someone to say yes to that, you don't have a fucking campaign.
Yeah, you have a job.
You literally skip the hardest part of what real life is all about, getting the $1 million or having no budget and getting a campaign out of it. It's probably more realistic, especially when you're first starting off, if you're starting an agency or
for sure.
like that.
Whatever it is, right? Bootstrap.
So you as a restaurant, you didn't start off with a budget of $10 million
Zero.
for a restaurant. You had fuck all.
Zero. We built it, I remember my dad and myself. And like one of those handyman, my uncle was a part of it too, just building the place by ourselves.
Yeah.
Go to Langevin Forêt, pick up the wood, cut it, stain it. It didn't look good. It fell apart after a year or two. I had to like continuously redo it, but we did it. But
that's what I'm saying is like all those things like that. That's part of the process. And now it's different. Now you'll hire somebody. You have a place now.
Now you hire people because you don't have the time to do that stuff, right?
But at the beginning, you have to do that part. You have to do the marketing part. You're doing all that shit.
Yeah.
And I always found school was always a bit like unrealistic. It's like you're walking out with a project that absolutely is not realistic in real life. Like it's not the way the world works at all.
I went to Loyola for high school and we actually had one project in Sec 5 that was like economics project. We actually had to create a company. Funny enough, me and my team did a sandwich shop, a sandwich stand.
So you still have that copy of that report you're looking at?
You know what, dude? I still have like the Facebook group. We did a funny commercial. It was like, I'm a bigger dude, so I'm like running, trying to lose weight. I smash a sandwich, and then I just turn into my friend who's like ultra jacked at the time.
So the sandwich.
Yeah, it's supposed to make you healthy. I don't understand how, but that's what it was at the time. But that was one project that I'll probably remember for the rest of my life as being something that like I actually took something from that course and like learned a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
it was cool, man.
And when you do that, you actually see like an idea of how tough it is to put that stuff together.
Yeah.
But now, like, okay, so if we kind of jump back, maybe back into the present, you guys have the two places, and then you walked into timeout, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, super big deal.
So how did that happen, and what are you seeing out of that kind of that introduction into the downtown world?
It's awesome. It's fun. So that happened. I think one of the directors or managers was a customer of ours at Masson, and he had approached Fabio and said like, hey, like we should talk and we'd love to have you in timeout. Obviously we said yes. It's an opportunity that I don't think you could pass up. So we did that. This is our second location within a year. We opened Masson pretty much exactly a year ago, and timeout we opened a month ago. So yeah. And
what are you seeing out of the timeout? Is it different?
It's different, man. It's super different.
What's different about it?
It's well, the vibe in general is different. It's more downtowny, like businessy. You're with a bunch of other cool restaurants too, so like the atmosphere is fun. There's cool music playing. There's a bar section. It's just different. It's I would say that like our kiosk maybe still has like that South Philly, Italian American, Italian Montreal vibe to it, but like the place in general, it's Time Out Market, right? Yeah. It's their vibe, which I like. I enjoy it.
Has it changed a bit in maybe, has it helped you see a different vision? Not in question of changing Bossa, but I mean in kind of the vision for the future.
Vision for the future. So Time Out is like a super reduced menu. I should start off by saying we only have like maybe 12 to 14 like total menu items, as opposed to my other locations where we have 20 sandwiches, a bunch of pastas, desserts, pastries, groceries up the walls. Like we sell a lot of product at the other two stores, and this one's really like a condensed version of what we're doing. So it's nice to see that it's working. It'd be cool. My vision for this place is I don't ever want it to be like a franchise, or I don't ever want it to be like big enough to the point that we lose our quality and we lose our vibe and our atmosphere. I would like to do maybe another one, maybe another two, depending if the opportunity is right. But it's nice to see that Time Out, being the reduced menu that it is working, because that means that if I were to do another one, I could maybe look into like a cooler neighborhood and take up less square footage and still get the same result.
And it's I'm sure, like, because also being associated with all those other restaurants and kind of being in that world, I'm sure the network for you too has been phenomenal.
Yeah, it's been sick, man.
A bunch of new people that
cool.
you would have never been able to meet, on the single location. And how is it now, kind of knowing that you're in this space where you're all together? It's kind of, you're competing against each other, but you're all together at the same time.
Yeah, man.
Right? How's the vibe of just like getting to know the other restaurants? And
it's nice. It's nice. There's obviously the people that we're closest to are our neighbors. We see them every day. There's other restaurants that maybe we've said hi to each other once or twice. But the vibe's awesome, man. The people that work there too, like the managers and the directors, like great people. Just interacting with them and spending time with them here and there is like really cool. And you're working with people now that are at kind of that different level. And me personally, I always want to be like leveling up in a way, working with people that are better than me. Yeah. So that I could maybe eventually get to that point. So I'm very fortunate that I get to see these people often and I get to interact with them. Now my partner Luke is there pretty much all the time. Okay. I'm more on the road, just going from place to place. But the times that I am there, it's nice to be there. I enjoy it. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Like I'm it's so crazy because, like I said earlier, I saw, I think it was when did you open the first Bossa?
5 years ago almost, man. In June, it's going to be 5 years. Yeah. 2018.
And then, if you asked yourself 5 years ago,
no, there's no way. I would have never. I mean, obviously, I would have loved this to be the outcome, but I would have never expected it to be this like what it is today. And I'm forever grateful and fortunate to be a part of it.
It's funny. It's funny you say that. Everyone that kind of puts their head down to the ground, works real hard, and kind of has this vision. Ultimately, if you keep going at it, the good things always
comes through, man.
Right?
Yeah.
And everyone always says the same thing. Like, if I would have told myself 5 years ago, I wouldn't even believe it. Like right now, especially if we go back to that fire.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
If you go back to that fire and you see, Dan of today standing next to the Dan in front of that fire.
Yeah, crazy.
I can't even imagine what that conversation would be like.
It'd be different, man. I remember I know what my vision was back in the day. Like, I know what I wanted to become, and it was not this. I mean, it was definitely a version of this, but I could never, I don't think in my wildest dreams, imagine that it would be to like this, to this level. You know what I mean? What I wanted was, or what my vision was just a place that I could feel comfortable going, like a place that my friends could come and we could, have some fun together and mess around, a solid team, obviously serving like really good food and maybe enough money, hopefully at the end of the year to pay my rent and expenses and like, and live a little bit, like obviously, but.
And then it changes, right? It's like at the beginning, the minimum requirement is all you're looking
super
for.
Super low.
Excuse me. And then as you keep going, you're like, all of a sudden these things get put in front of you and all that stuff. But if you never lose that feeling of that minimum requirement of like, this is ultimately what I want to do is give somebody good food, have a good time, and not get a job that I hate fucking doing.
Exactly.
I think that's the biggest part where sometimes we forget as we keep doing all these projects. It's like, oh man, if I don't have to do the job I don't want to do, that's the key, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's awesome, and I love seeing this the growth of it. I love seeing someone like you too. Like, man, you're always just a fucking good guy. One,
My man.
and
Thank
then
you.
two, like you've always done things in a way where it's like it's really you. And it's authentic, and I think that's the thing that I always liked. Just hanging out with you, and I remember even with those tickets, I was like,
I feel the same way about you, man. And I think that's why we connect so well, is because like we kind of both have a very similar mentality and like demeanor too. I find.
yeah, man. It was
So,
just what I always liked about you is that there wasn't bullshit. It was like, okay, this is who he is.
Yeah.
We get along, we have a good time, and you could see that this kid is like, I always say kid, you're not a kid.
Yeah, at the time for sure,
You know,
guaranteed.
Like it was just this idea of seeing you also grow into this businessman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's fucking great. Like I had another guest that came on, and he was an old guitar student of mine,
Oh, sick.
and now he's a producer in the city, and he's producing really great tracks. He just won an award for something with SoCan,
Oh, no way.
and you're seeing all this stuff, and I'm like, I love seeing that.
Yeah,
I
man.
love seeing someone that I saw as a kid that had this passion for music,
Yeah.
and is now actually living it. I saw someone that is like fucking working his ass off in the restaurant business and in catering and all this stuff, and then boom, he's kicking ass now, opening up his third place. So to me, it was like seeing stuff like this.
The underdog stories
Yeah,
in a
man, the
way, bro.
underdog
Everyone
story.
wants to see it for
Everyone
sure. I
wants
love
to
it
see
too,
the
man.
growth factor,
Absolutely.
you know? So for me, like I said, man, I'm super happy that you came by. I know you're super busy with 3 restaurants,
I'll always make time for you, bro. Absolutely.
and on my side, it's anytime you ever in the future, if there's anything I can help with, I've worked in marketing for a long time.
Of course.
Ask me, never fucking problem, dude. Anytime, and I'm so happy you came here today.
Appreciate that.
And man, that was it. I wanted to hear the story of.
That's it?
Yeah, well, we could keep
We're
going.
at an hour already.
We're almost at an hour. I gotta
man.
close up
Jesus
shop
Christ.
over here, but
Time flies, man.
it's
Sick.
crazy, dude. And on my end, is there anything that you wanted to kind of close off with?
Not really, man. No, I just, this opportunity was cool, man. It was fun, man. And just spend some time with you. Obviously, I'd be down to do that. So,
I can't wait. Again,
Yeah.
we'll do it again.
whenever you want, man.
Do it at a future. I
Yeah.
want to hear all the fucking cool new stuff that you're going through, man.
I'm down, man.
Awesome,
We good?
dude.
That's a wrap, buddy.
That's it,
That was fun.
dude.
Hey, thanks for checking out the show. It's been awesome working on this project. And if you like it, tell a friend. And if you want to support the show, you can by 1, subscribing and liking our YouTube channel at the DMW Podcast. 2, you can go to our website and sign up to our mailing list at the dmwpodcast.com. And 3, you can follow us on Instagram at the DMW Podcast. Thanks again for all of your support. My name is Stef, and this is the Dead Man Walking Podcast.